Did you know that nearly 70% of couples over 60 quietly struggle with feeling distant, not in love, but in touch? What if I told you that the answer isn't in a pill, but in your wine glass? Just a few sips of the right kind could bring back that warmth, that spark, that feeling you thought was long gone. I've lived through it myself, and I've seen it happen time and again. Let me show you how wine, yes, wine for seniors, can gently open the door to intimacy after 60. The real reason intimacy fades after 60. I used to think it was just age. You hit your 60s, maybe your 70s, and the closeness, the kind you don't talk about in public, starts to fade. I figured it was normal, something you quietly accept. But I've learned something different. It wasn't about desire. It wasn't about love. And no, it wasn't about hormones either. The truth, simple as it sounds, came down to blood flow. Poor circulation. That's what was keeping me from feeling alive in those quiet, intimate moments. That's what was stealing the warmth from my hands, the energy from my mornings, and that deep sense of connection I used to feel just by holding my wife's hand. When blood doesn't move the way it used to, everything changes. It's not sudden, it's slow, like fog creeping in. You notice your feet get colder. Your response to touch isn't quite the same. Maybe your partner reaches for you, and you want to respond, but something just doesn't click. And then come the doubts. Is it me? Is it her? Have we just grown apart? But I can tell you, this growing apart isn't inevitable. Connection doesn't fade because love dies. Often, it fades because the body simply isn't circulating well enough to carry the signals of closeness where they need to go. Wine for seniors may sound like a small thing, a comfort for quiet evenings, but I've found that certain wines can gently support circulation. They don't just warm the belly, they warm the moments between two people. When I started understanding that the barrier between me and intimacy wasn't emotional, but physical, and that physical could be gently helped, it changed everything. So if you're over 60 and you've felt that quiet drift, don't assume it's the end. Sometimes it's just your body asking for a little help to keep the rhythm of closeness alive. The unique role of wine in supporting circulation. I used to enjoy a glass of wine here and there, mostly with dinner or when company came over. I never thought of it as anything more than a small pleasure. But I've come to learn, especially in these later years, that certain wines carry more than just good flavor. They carry something healing. Our bodies slow down with time. The heart works just as hard, but the roads it pumps through our blood vessels get narrower, stiffer. It's like trying to drive through town when all the streets are half closed. Blood doesn't move like it used to, and with that, warmth fades, energy dips, touch feels distant. But inside some of these dark grapes is a quiet strength. I'm talking about natural compounds, things like polyphenols, flavonoids, and resveratrol. You won't taste them in the glass, but you'll feel their effects if you know what to look for. These little helpers work deep inside, relaxing the walls of our blood vessels. They help reduce inflammation. And they nudge the body to release nitric oxide, which gently opens those vessels back up. I remember one evening, after sipping a small glass of Pinot Noir, my hands felt less cold. I noticed my chest felt lighter. It wasn't dramatic, but it was there. And over the next few weeks, I began to sleep better. I laughed more with my wife. We sat closer on the porch swing again. It was subtle, but real. This isn't about drinking more. It's about choosing right. Not every wine will do it. Only a few carry these special compounds. But when chosen wisely, wine for seniors can be more than a comfort. It can be a companion to circulation, a quiet medicine that doesn't come in a bottle from the pharmacy, but from the vineyard. So when folks ask me if it's too late to feel close again, to feel alive, I tell them no. Sometimes the path back begins with something simple, like a shared glass, a warm moment, and a little help from the heart of the grape. Pinot Noir, the opener of connection. There's a softness in Pinot Noir that reminds me of the early days with my wife. We didn't need grand gestures, just quiet moments, a shared laugh, a slow walk after dinner. That kind of closeness doesn't have to disappear with age. It just needs a little help to come back. Of all the wines I've tried over the years, Pinot Noir has stood out, not just for its smooth, gentle flavor, but for what it does beneath the surface. This wine is rich in something called resveratrol. I didn't know that word when I was younger, but now I understand its power. Resveratrol helps our blood vessels relax. It opens them up, makes them more flexible. That means blood flows easier, especially to the places where warmth, touch, and connection begin. I remember one night, we poured a small glass each. The room was quiet, and we sat close, no words needed. The warmth in my chest, the lightness in my limb-sit was subtle, but deep. That night, I didn't feel old. I felt present. Pinot Noir doesn't force anything. It doesn't rush the body like pills sometimes do. It supports what's already there. It gives the heart and mind a little space to breathe, a little permission to feel again. For seniors, especially those who felt a distance grow emotionally or physically, this wine can be like a bridge, not magic, just a gentle opening, a way back to softness, to touch, to quiet joy. The more I've spoken with others in my age group, the more I hear the same thing. We thought it was gone, but now we're close again. That's why Pinot Noir to me is more than a drink. It's a small act of care, a step toward connection. A reminder that even after 60, the heart can still open, the body can still respond, and real love can still be felt in full. Cabernet Sauvignon, the artery defender. There's a strength to Cabernet Sauvignon, not just in its deep color or bold taste, but in what it does inside the body. I didn't always pay attention to these things. But once I reached my late 60s, I started noticing small changes: slower mornings, colder hands, a feeling that my body wasn't keeping up the way it used to. That's when I learned something that changed my view entirely. The health of our blood vessels, the tiny highways that carry life to every part of us, starts to fade with time. They stiffen, they lose their flexibility. And when that happens, the heart has to work harder, and closeness, both physical and emotional, becomes harder to reach. Cabernet Sauvignon, I found, holds a quiet power. It's rich in something called proanthocyanidins. These are natural antioxidants, strong ones, that protect the lining of our arteries. They help keep our blood vessels elastic, open, and healthy. That means better circulation, a stronger heart, and for many of us, a softer return to the feeling of connection. I remember one evening not too long ago, my wife and I sat down for a slow dinner. The television was off, the phones were quiet. We shared a glass of Cabernet juice, a few ounces sand. We talked. Nothing dramatic, just talk. But something felt easier, lighter. Her hand in mine felt warmer. My chest didn't feel tight. I was simply there, with her. This wine doesn't fix everything, but for seniors, it can be part of a gentle shift. A way to support the body while also opening the door to more laughter, more late-night conversations, more ease in being close. That's why I call it the Defender. Cabernet protects what matters: your arteries, your heart, and those quiet moments that remind you you're still very much alive, still capable of feeling, still able to love, deeply and fully, even after 60. Sangiovese, the restorer of warmth. There's something about a chilly hand or a distant touch that tells you more than words can. For me, it started with little things. My fingertips felt colder. My feet took longer to warm up. And even in quiet moments with my wife, there was a space between us that didn't used to be there. Not emotional, just physical. That's when I was introduced to Sangiovese, a rich Italian red, smooth and earthy, and full of something I didn't expect: warmth. You see, Sangiovese carries powerful natural compounds like flavonoids and quercetin. These aren't just fancy names. They do something simple but important. They help blood flow better. Not just to your heart or brain, but to your skin, your hands, your feet, and those tender places where closeness happens. After I started enjoying a small glass of Sangiovese now and then, never too much, always slow and mindful, I noticed changes. I could feel my wife's touch again, not just with my skin, but all the way inside. It wasn't about excitement, it was about presence, about being there, fully. One afternoon, we sat out on the porch with our glasses. No rush. The air was cool, but my hands weren't. I looked over, and she smiled in that quiet way she does when we don't need to say anything at all. That's what Sangiovese gave back to me. Not a cure, not a miracle, just the return of warmth, real warmth, the kind that fills a moment. For many of us seniors, it's not about chasing what we had when we were young. It's about remembering how it feels to simply be close again. And sometimes all it takes is the right wine, a quiet afternoon, and a body that feels just a little more alive than it did the day before. That's the gift of Sangiovese, a gentle way to remind us that touch still matters, and that warmth, true, living warmth, can always return. Dry Rosé, the hidden gem for women. I still remember the first time Ellen told me how she felt. She was 66, kind-hearted, full of life, but quietly frustrated. "I love my husband deeply," she said, "but I feel like I've drifted away from my own body." Her words stayed with me because I knew them myself. After menopause, many of us begin to feel less connected, not just to our partners, but to ourselves. Sensitivity fades. Dryness creeps in, and the quiet warmth we once felt becomes a distant memory. That's when I started learning more about dry rosé. It's light, gentle, not too sweet, and surprisingly powerful. Unlike heavier wines, dry rosé has a lower alcohol content, which makes it easier on the body. But more importantly, it's packed with polyphenols, natural compounds that support microcirculation. That means better blood flow to the places that often get left behind with age. For women, this kind of support can make all the difference. As I began enjoying a small glass of dry rosé with dinner never rushing, always with food, I noticed changes. The tingling came back in my fingers. I felt more present, and slowly, my body didn't feel like a stranger anymore. It's not about turning back time, it's about turning toward yourself again. Dry rosé doesn't overwhelm the senses. It invites them back, gently. It brings back softness, touch, and ease. I often sip it on the porch, watching the sun dip low, sometimes alone, sometimes with the one I've spent decades with, but always with gratitude for this quiet return to feeling. For women after 60, especially after the shifts of menopause, dry rosé can be a small but meaningful companion, a reminder that your body still deserves warmth, that your story isn't done, and that even the gentlest wine can help you feel whole again. It's a hidden gem, yes, but when you find it, you begin to find yourself too. Turning wine into a lasting ritual of connection. I've come to believe that wine, when used with care, is more than just something you drink. It can become a way to slow down, to remember, to reconnect not just with your partner, but with yourself. Over the years, my wife and I have collected our own little ritual. A shared glass before dinner, a quiet toast as the sun sets, not every night, but often enough to make it ours. Those simple moments have done more for our closeness than any grand vacation or fancy dinner ever did. The wine itself matters, of course. We choose with intention. Pinot Noir when we want something smooth, Cabernet for evenings when our hearts need a little strength, a gentle dry rosé on warmer days. Each bottle brings its own kind of warmth, both in body and in spirit. But it's not really about the wine, it's about the pause. It's the way she leans in when pouring the glass, the way my hand brushes hers as we sit down, the way the silence becomes comfortable, even full. These moments remind us we're still here, still growing together. For seniors like us, it's easy to feel that time is slipping by, that the best days are behind us. But I've learned sometimes through pain, sometimes through joy, that love can deepen with age, not fade. By turning wine into a ritual, we've built something steady, a rhythm, a habit of care, not for the sake of health alone, but for the heart. For the intimacy that lives in shared glances, warm touches, and familiar laughter. Wine for seniors isn't just about circulation, it's about connection. And when poured with intention, even the smallest glass can fill your life with meaning, with memory. with love that lingers long after the last sip. So, if you felt distance, dryness, or the quiet fading of closeness, remember, it may not be age, it may be your circulation. And a small glass of the right wine might be just what your body and heart have been waiting for. Wine for Seniors isn't about indulgence, it's about intention, connection, the quiet return of warmth, presence, and touch. If this spoke to you, if it reminded you of something you want to feel, again, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe so we can keep this conversation going. There's still so much life ahead. Let's raise a glass to it together.